Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Kringle. I just wanted to share with you some information about where to find resources to help you with your dinosaur project for Mr. Steele and Mrs. Newell. There's a lot of great resources that we've curated and gathered for you, and I want to show you where those are located. But first, I want to get you pumped up about dinosaurs and about what you're going to be studying and creating a project for. So I have this short little video from National Geographic that I thought I would share with you.
Probably no other creatures on the planet have struck as much fear and awe in our hearts as the dinosaurs. The earliest dinosaurs appeared about 245 million years ago during the Triassic period, when most of the Earth's land masses were still joined together as the supercontinent Pangaea. Over millions of years, Pangaea split apart, causing the dinosaurs to become separated for the very first time. This led the reptiles to adapt to their specific habitats and diversify, giving rise to many new dinosaur species. According to some estimates, more than 1,000 species of dinosaurs have roamed the Earth. All dinosaurs descended from reptiles called archosaurs. From there, dinosaurs branched out into two major groups, Saurischia and Ornithischia, based on the shape and orientation of their pelvis. In Saurischian dinosaurs, such as Tyrannosaurus rex and Brachiosaurus, the pelvis's pubis bone faces forward and down. In Ornithischian dinosaurs, such as Stegosaurus and Hadrosaurs, the pubis bone faces backward and down. Across both groups, dinosaurs varied greatly in size. Some were small, like Compsognathus, which was barely larger than a chicken, whereas others were gigantic, like Dreadnoughtus, which was 85 feet long and weighed 65 tons, making it the largest land animal to have ever lived. Dinosaur diets varied as well. Herbivores, like hadrosaurs, evolved to have specialized teeth for grinding tough plant material. Carnivores made up roughly 40% of dinosaur species. Some predators, like the raptor Deinonychus, even hunted in packs. Social behaviors were also found in other dinosaurs. Footprints and trackways indicate that some of the ancient reptiles traveled together. Evidence also shows that herds may have made annual visits to certain sites to lay their eggs. But by around 66 million years ago, most dinosaurs died out, and the reason why is still a mystery. The most well-known explanation is an asteroid strike, but a multitude of factors may have contributed to this extinction. In fact, the dinosaur population was already in severe decline by the time the asteroid struck. However, several dinosaur species survived, and some of which evolved to become today's birds. The world has never again seen land creatures as great as the dinosaurs. But through their descendants and fossils left behind, their legacy lives on.
Hopefully that got you excited about doing some research on organisms from three different time periods that you have to choose from. They are the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous, which are the three time periods of the dinosaurs, as well as the Pleistocene. You have an option to do that as well, which is otherwise known as the Ice Age. So you have those four different time periods that you can choose from. What you're going to do is then create either a PowerPoint or a poster, your choice, representing different organisms from those time periods. You're going to have 10 things that you are going to create slides or a poster for. And those things are biotic and abiotic factors. A biotic factor, again, is just something that is living in the environment. That could be a plant or an animal. And an abiotic factor, that's going to be something that's not living, but that affects the organisms that are living there. Such, for example, you could do climate or you could do habitat, or I did a rock. You'll see an example of that in just a minute, but something that's not living. So you're going to do a biotic and an abiotic factor. Then you're going to look at a producer. Producer is somebody who makes their own food using sunlight, usually, typically, and it's known as plants, usually. We're also going to look at habitat. Habitat is just what is it like there? So the climate, the landscape, what kinds of organisms do you find there? So the habitat is another one that you're going to do a slide for. Then you're going to do 6 on organisms. You're going to do an herbivore, which is just an animal that eats plants. You're going to find an example of a carnivore, which is an animal that eats meat. And you're going to find an example of an omnivore, which is an animal that eats both plants and meat. Then you're going to find an example of a primary producer or primary consumer, and that's going to be, again, an herbivore. A secondary consumer, which is going to be an omnivore. And your top level consumer, or your apex predator, which is going to be a carnivore. Those are the 10 things that you're going to create slides for. And I've created this example, and this example of these Google slides are available on your Google Classroom for you to look at and use as an example. I chose the Jurassic period, so I'm going to show you what my different slides look like. If you want to watch that video again that we just watched, it is right there for you to, the link for it is there for you to watch. But this is my first slide, which is my biotic factor. And I chose the plesiosaur. And so what each slide is going to look like is you're going to have the definition of the organism there. So, or the definition of the vocabulary words. So in this case, biotic factor is a living thing as an animal or plant that influences or affects an ecosystem. You're going to have the size of the biotic factor. In this case, a plesiosaur is 990 pounds, 11 feet in length, and 3.3 feet in height. Food source, what they ate. So they ate fish, squid, mollusks, and other sea creatures. And then the habitat, where did they live? What did it look like? They lived near shore estuaries to the open ocean, and some even lived in freshwater habitats. So these are the things that you're going to have on each one of your slides. So you're going to have the definition, you're going to have the size of the organism, the food source that they ate, and the habitat. Now, the abiotic factor is something that's not living, that would have affected those living creatures. I chose shell-rich limestone. Limestone is a type of rock. So rocks are not living. Again, I have my definition of what abiotic factor is. It's a non-living condition or thing, such as a climate or habitat that influences or affects an ecosystem and the organisms in it. Because it's not living, it's not going to have a size, it's not going to have a food source, and it's not really going to have a habitat. But you want to talk about where you would find it. Shell-rich limestone certainly is not a living thing. Stones are not living, but they were home to many biotic factors. So they did have an effect on biotic factors. So I just have some description of what the shell-rich limestone was, where it was located, and things like that. Then the producer that I chose was a fern. Again, I have my definition of what a producer is. I have a size of the ferns. They could grow up to be 65 feet tall. They were actually like trees. The food source, there's sunlight. They use sunlight to make their own food. And habitat, where they are growing and what the climate is like where they're growing. Then I went through and I found 6 dinosaurs from the Jurassic time period. I chose primary consumer, my herbivore, secondary consumer, my omnivore, and my top level consumer, or what also is known as apex predator. And you can see its food source is any animal it can chase down and catch. But again, I have my definition of the word, and then the size, food source, and habitat. Then I have to also define and find examples for carnivore, herbivore, and omnivore. Now, your carnivore is going to be your top level consumer. They are the same thing. However, you have to find 2 different examples. So I have 2 different dinosaurs to represent that. Your herbivore is your primary consumer. But again, you need to find a different dinosaur and you need to define it differently. Okay, and omnivore is again going to be your secondary consumer, but you have to find a different example. And your last thing that you're going to define and describe is the habitat. Now, the habitat's not going to have a food source or a size, But again, it's going to have the definition of what a habitat is and then a description of what it was like in the Jurassic or Triassic or Cretaceous or Pleistocene. And I have some websites that you can use to do that. And that's the information you need to include. But here's what I think is the most important slide, which is your citations. That just tells Mr. Steele and Mrs. Newell where your information came from. And they are not requiring you to do the full on citation format, but you do need to provide the website for each one of the slides. So I have each one of my slides where I got the information from, and the dinosaurs I did together because I use the same websites for those. So that's how you're going to create, or this is an example of a presentation that you're going to create for Mr. Steele and Mrs. Newell. Certainly you can also, like I said, do a poster, but you need to include the same information. So where do you find this information? I want to show you where you can go to find that information. So the first place you need to go is the Pierre School District homepage, which is pier.k12.sd.us. Then you're going to put your mouse over the word schools. You'll see the 5 schools in our district. We're going to go down to TF Riggs High School and then TF Riggs Library, and you're going to click on that. Those are all links there. I already have it open, so I'm just going to click on the tab. When you first come in, you'll see a page that looks like that. This is the home page. But to find the resources we're going to use, we're going to go right here to Riggs Research Resources. We're going to click on that. So this tab right here. And we're going to be looking on the left-hand side of the page. So we're going to scroll down until we find a page that's called Dinosaur Habitats. When you find that page, go ahead and click on it. This is the page. I have it open already. We call this a digital curation page. It's on the company name that I use hosts this is called Scoop It. But these are dinosaur habitats and links to both dinosaurs and Ice Age information. So if you decide to do the Pleistocene, there's lots of links here for you. I want to start by, no matter if you're doing the Triassic, the Jurassic, or the Cretaceous, by looking at this Dino Directory. This is an awesome resource, and I used it for all 6 of my dinosaurs that I did here. There is, on this page, a link right over here that says when they lived. Okay, so if you click on that, you'll see these options here. You can look at the Triassic, the Jurassic, or the Cretaceous. Now, those of you who are looking for things like T-Rexes and Stegosauruses, some of the more common dinosaurs, those are dinosaurs from the Cretaceous. We like to think that they were from the Jurassic, but they're actually from the Cretaceous. So some of those big name dinosaurs, that's where you find those. But the Jurassic has plenty of really interesting dinosaurs, and so does the Triassic. I'm going to choose the mid-Jurassic just as an example. And here's where you see the dinosaurs that roamed during the mid-Jurassic. Okay, so let's look at Gasosaurus, just because it's one that I can actually say. The Gasosaurus, or gas lizard is his name, was a carnivore, so he ate meat. So he would work as an example of either your top-level consumer or as a carnivore. Remember, you need to have 2 different examples for that. When he lived, where he was found, okay, and his length. So he was 4 meters. Now, I don't have an understanding of how many feet 4 meters is. I don't know how long he was. But if you go here to a new tab and go to Google and type in how many feet is 4 meters, and Google brings up this nice little conversion machine here. So 4 meters was 13.1 feet long. So he was that long. Now you'll notice on this page, as wonderful as it is, it's not telling me how much he weighed or even how tall he was. So it is acceptable to go to Google and say, how much did Gasosaurus weigh? Excuse me, if I could spell it would help. He weighed 330 pounds, okay? This is acceptable to use. I don't usually tell you to use Wikipedia as a resource, but it is okay when we're just looking up basic facts about how much something might have weighed, okay? And it tells you its length is 11 to 13 feet, which we already figured out, and its height was 4.9 feet at the hips. So that's helpful too if you want to include that information. I included all those pieces of information on my dinosaur slides. So he's eating meat, probably can eat anything he can get his hands on, okay? Because he was one of those apex predators. If you go back and look, usually these dinosaurs that have long necks, those are usually your herbivores or omnivores. This case, this one is a Laparance lizard. He was an herbivore, okay, and he was found in Madagascar. Okay, so you can go, and if you want to know more about what the habitat was like of Laptosaurus, you can maybe go into Google and type in what was the habitat of Laptosaurus like, and it should give you an idea. Now, if you just want to know what the habitat of the Jurassic was like, okay, what did it seem like? What was the climate? What did it look like there? If you go back to the Scoop It page with the dinosaur habitats page, you'll notice that I have lots of links here to habitats. This one is great. It says dinosaur habitats, and it goes through each one of the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. It tells you what it looked like. You'll see what kind of plants were there. Horsetails were there. Those are things we can still find. Here's the Jurassic period. So there was a lot of forests at that time. It was the time when Pangaea was breaking apart, so there was more water. So the climate was changing from a desert-like climate to damper climates, more rainforest type climates that we're kind of familiar with when we think of the dinosaurs. And here's the Cretaceous period, what it was like. So it was really damp and moist and rainforest-like during the Cretaceous period. They also had more diverse habitats, mountains and plains, because the world looked a lot more like we know it today during the Cretaceous. So very interesting right here. So when you're going to do your habitat slide, there's some good information there. It'll also help you when you're writing up your dinosaurs, what their habitat was like by looking at those. If you need some more information about some of the major dinosaurs, this is a fun site there that has really good information. I do want to say, though, if you're planning to do the Ice Age or the Pleistocene, we have a lot of great resources here. This one is neat. The bigger they are, 10 Ice Age giants. This is from a magazine called Mental Floss. This is an Irish elk. It was not found exclusively in Ireland. They call it the Irish elk because people would find in Ireland, in ancient Ireland, they would find these 12-foot long antler spans in bogs, and they would bring them home to hunting lodges and claim that they had actually hunted them. So pretty interesting little history there. But what's going to give you is some good information on the animals to start with, and then you could go out to Google and do some more research on them. There was a giant short-faced bear. Let's go look at a picture of them. Let's go here. I want to go to images. Giant short-faced bear. Here's what I think is really interesting. Here's a giant short-faced bear example. They were 12 feet on their hind legs, and they actually, what was scary about them is they could actually run on their hind legs. So I can't imagine having that chasing me. But there's some really cool animals that you can look up. Giant sloths, a saber-toothed tiger, of course, woolly mammoths, really good information there. So you can choose some of those to do some more research on. I like this one too, Ice Age animals. It does not have links for all of these animals, but these are animals that were around during the Ice Age. Some of them are still around. You can see the voles, the mice, the snowshoe hare. We still find those around. And you can find some more information on them. But let's look at the saber-toothed cat. I thought it got a lot of really good information on the saber-toothed cat right there. So, and these are animals that were found in the Midwest during the Ice Age. So they're just highlighting those in particular. But again, some places to find some good information on Ice Age animals that you can use. We have information on the habitat of what it was like. These articles from Live Science, I have one for the Pleistocene, I have one for the Cretaceous, I have one for the Jurassic, and one for the Triassic. You can use those. They have great information in it. Let's go to the Pleistocene epoch right here. Has really good information on the climate, what it was like there, what it looked like, some of the plants and animals you would find there. So make sure you take a look at those Live Science ones. I think they're awesome. I also love the National Geographic ones that we have here. So like here's the Cretaceous period for National Geographic. They have these really cool slideshows that you can go through and look at some of these skulls right here or animals right here. And it's giving you the information right below the picture, telling you what you're looking at. Also has good information on the environment there and habitat as well. So lots of good resources here. I hope you'll take advantage of them as you begin your research for your dinosaur or your ice age project. If you need more help or need some assistance, please come see me at the Riggs Library. Thank you and have an awesome day.